we go. Bump that pressure up a little bit for me, Terry. Okay, so what's the first thing I want you to start looking at? I talked about those big raindrops hitting you on the head and blowing the particles apart. Look at the splashboard and the back of the tilled soils and with the less residue cover. What's the first thing you see? They're being blown apart by the raindrop impact, and the silts, the sands, and the clays are separating. And you see the shiny look on the surface of the soils? That's an indicator. You see the shiny look at the bottom of the raindrop impact on bare soil? It's that liquid suspension. They're already floating. If you've got a slope, they're leaving the premises. They're leaving, and you don't have a shot at them, okay? So what do we have here? For soils, this came out of a windbreak on my farm. It's a CCC windbreak, so we know it hasn't been tilled in 70 plus years, so it's as close to Mother Nature's best as you can get. Also, it has a cover crop in it, a living cover that is growing from the time the soil warms up in the spring until the soil cools down in the fall. That's Mother Nature's system that built our prairie soils to 4 to 7% organic matter. Living covers, living crops, a living soil as long as you can. We grow corn and beans for 4 to 5 months in the middle of the year, and there's a month and a half on either end of that where the soil can be alive. That's where the cover crop comes in, okay? The cover crops come in, well, number one, photosynthesis, that's what they do. They gather sunlight. It all starts here, photosynthesis, and then you have organic matter, and this starts the whole soil biology. But it's all about having a plant out there that's collecting sunlight, transferring it into nutrients, sugars, plant sugars that are exchanged with the microbes. Then the microbes, the photosynthesizers, the decomposers, which is the fungi and stuff like that. Then it all goes into the protozoa, nematodes, fungi, bacteria. It starts the whole thing, but it's all about having something living in it. So Mother Nature's best. From under that, we gather some of the soils with high organic matter, good aggregate stability, good soil glue. And then the middle one basically is your control. That's the worst you can do, is beat the hell out of your soils with tillage for 100 years and then do it again next year. And leave it uncovered. Leave it open for the impact of the raindrop, okay? The one right here is, I should make sure everything's draining into the right, yeah they are, is about 30% residue cover. And what does that represent from an NRCS standpoint? That's the amount of residue you need to leave on your field surfaces of highly erodible land in order to qualify for government subsidies. It'll be federal crop insurance now, likely. Okay? We call it a D-. This is as bad as you can do and still qualify. This soil this doesn't feel bad, actually. Yeah. Underneath here is the same soil, okay? It is the same beat up, conventionally tilled soil, but all we're doing is parking the tillage equipment, leaving, oh yeah, thank you. Hey, that's supposed to be good for 5 minutes in a toilet.
I had a son.
My own didn't do 32 minutes in the washer. Okay, so same soil type, same beat up condition, and all we're doing is deflecting the impact of that raindrop. We're just taking that out of that blasting a part of the soil profile or soil aggregates out of it and letting it soak in with what limited pore space we do have in that tightly tilled soil. All right, so the universal soil loss equation that we used to plan your conservation plans with was like rainfall, slope, length of slope, residue amounts, okay? And the model would be, this would be 100% delivery, 30% residue cover would yield 50%, it would cut your erosion and runoff by 50%, and you can see it's doing that. And 90%, which they call continuous no-till cover, will cut it by, or 70% or better, we'll cut it by 90%. So you see that happening. Now, the back row of jars is the infiltration jars, okay? So if it's not coming off, where's it going? Through and into the soil. So Mother Nature's best, 100% residue cover, something growing in the soil, the soil biology producing the sugar proteins that keep those aggregates glued together and keep the soil structure with good pore space integrity, it's a knockout. It's a home run here. This is why, you know, when you build a dam and you want to put fish in it, you put it in an area that's got grass or rangeland that's treated well in it. You don't put it under a tilled, you don't raise fish in a pond with tilled soils up in the watershed. Okay, now there is a good point to be made here. The second pan there has got long-term no-till soils in it. They've been tilled a little bit in the process of getting it out of the dirt or out of the ground, put in here, but you can see that they're also getting blasted apart. So the deal is here, if you're going to break up rangeland, cropland, or CRP and bring that into production, try to do it and retain the cover and the biological systems that Mother Nature has on it, okay? All right, now the other two speak for themselves. We'll let it run a little bit longer here. You can see Mother Nature's best has filled that whole gallon jar already, okay? That gallon jar in one of these pans, it's a 14 by 22 2-inch deep pan, represents about an acre-inch of water. Okay, so you saved that, put that in the ground. I think we can go ahead and see what we got for rain. Okay, we're looking at about 1.5 inches of rain. And again, you know, we've done this in 5 minutes, so that's a pretty intense rain. But again, the model is, you know, it's all across all
Rain cats and dogs.
Down here, and we're going to flip these. This is called the aha moment for people when they see exactly how these systems compare when it comes to the infiltration. Okay, and I like this part because it's the one that gets people thinking. I need to take stuff off here for a second. I do this down in Kansas at the No-Till on the Plains winter conference, and I had a young gentleman out in the front row watching, and when we flipped those over, it wasn't aha, this is being projected to 600 people in the other room, and this kid went, holy shit! That was funny. Okay, so here's the control, the worst you can do. See the crust? See that crust? Nothing's getting through there. All right, in western Nebraska, far western Nebraska, they have these, you know, they get 1 inch of rain, crusts their soils up, the wind comes out and starts blowing, and 3 hours later the crust dries off and they got a windstorm already. And it's all because of the degradation of the soil and the blown apart of the soil particles. Right at 1.5 inches of rain. Okay, so we flip it over, and you see a lot ran off, none went in. How far through that soil profile did we get? 2 inches, or 1.5 inches of rain, barely got to 2 inches. Okay, and it's because the soil surface is sealed. 30% residue. Again, you can see the soil surface is crusted up some. What's interesting is you look underneath the residue that I pick off, see that? Where the impact of the raindrop has been deflected, the soil is about that much higher. What does that represent? Pore space that we don't have. Okay, each one of these gets a little bit heavier as I flip them because there's more water in them. 30% residue. It's a D-. It's a little bit better. You can see we lost almost as much runoff, but it's a little, if you let this settle out later, if you look at it, there'll be less sediment in it. Okay, so the D- does cut your runoff and erosion and sedimentation by about the effect a D- versus an F would affect your folks when you take that grade home. Now this one is interesting because you lift this up, there's nothing, or there's a little bit that's gone into the soil profile. There's nothing in the runoff jar, so to speak. And this pan is so much heavier. There's a whole gallon of water in this pan. There's 1 acre-inch of water in this field just as a result of parking that tillage equipment for the first time and leaving the soil surface covered. Okay, so our outside edge, what happens on the outside edge is that this impetus usually takes some of the water off. But you can see on the inside edge, how it's made it through soil profile just because we maintained the integrity of a very poor system. And this is a good, what you call long-term no-till soil. So it retained some of its aggregate stability, so you had gravity flow through, and the water made it through, and we collected about half as much. But you can see just by the color of the container that we did degrade that soil just because we left it bare. Mother Nature's best. I'll flip this over and show it to you, then I'm going to flip it back over and I'm going to use this about 10 more times. She just rocks right through there. And it's because of the soil glues, that glomalin, Google it, glomalin. It's a sugary protein. It glues the soils together. It has the same effect as the mucus from the earthworms. I think I can get this done. I have to use this again in a couple of days. And you know, when I do shows where I run this 10 times, you can use the same tray all day long and you can saturate it. Okay.